So I'm here to talk about another part of Woman in Cabin 10. I've got my good friend Mochi here. He's my kitty. He wanted to sit on my lap and I wanted to make this video, so he gets to join us for this. This one is going to cover part 5, which goes through chapter 21. I forget where it starts, at like 14, I think. 14 through 21, something like that. This was an interesting part. I feel like we got more evidence of gaslighting, which is probably just going to be the thing that I say for the rest of this book until they prove me otherwise. But we got some pretty good evidence of gaslighting in this one. I do think it's interesting that she's now thinking it's not wise to talk to Nilsson, our security guy, after seeing the foggy letters in the spa, because she's like, well, the letters will be gone, which is a reasonable thing to make, but especially if someone is gaslighting her, it's like there are all these things that she can't prove, and so it's making her have less and less people she feels like she can trust and talk to, and then would lead more and more to her feeling like she's going crazy. I do feel like it was kind of weird that Ula was supposed to be there in the spa and wake her up at a certain point and go get her and things. And so I don't know quite what's going on with that. I don't know if they're trying to implicate Ula. I feel like it's probably not any of the staff in that regard. But at the same time, that it was kind of a suspicious event to have happen, and for her not to do what she was supposed to and be like, oh, you looked like you were sleeping so comfortably, so we didn't want to wake you. And then Ben is getting more and more suspicious because he went down into the spa area while she was down there, and people saw him go down there, which makes him feel like he's probably going to end up being a red herring, because it does tend to be that the ones that have the very most suspicious activity like that end up being red herrings and stuff like this, so I'm really not happy about that. I really wanted Ben to be the one, and I feel like in some ways Lo would agree with me, because she's certainly not been treating him well, which kudos to her for standing up for herself and not just letting Ben walk all over her and that sort of thing. I do think we got some interesting stuff about the girl that Lo thinks she saw in the cabin, that Cole might have had a photo of her in his camera, but then that camera gets thrown in the water as if someone else knew that that picture was there. I don't think it was Cole himself, because the way Lo described it, the camera wasn't even by him, but I suppose it could be his way of eluding suspicion too, to be like, oh no, I knocked it into the water, when really he did not. So, and when really he put it in there purposefully, but I don't feel like we've got as much against Cole as we do against, our dear friend, and by friend I mean not friend, Ben. So I really just want it to be Ben. I did think it was interesting that at one point we were talking about the girl from Cabin 10, and Ben was like, oh, I think this was the person that whoever was talking to on their phone, and I saw the name Jess, and we get just Jess, and he specifically says, oh, I only saw the first name, but then in the next line, Lo is like, I wanted to Google Jess Fenland, and I was like, but you didn't get a last name, where did Jess Fenland come from? It's like there were 2 drafts of that scene, and in one, Ruth was like, oh, we'll just do the first name, because then it's harder to track her down and find her. And then in the second version, she was like, well, you know what, we can have a last name too. Lo can't use her phone anyways because someone is blocking her signal, so it's fine if she has both names because she can't Google it anyways. And so it was like, they were 2 conflicting drafts, I feel like, that were there, and then they were not noticed when the book got published, and it was just left there. Either that or someone mentioned Jess Fenland earlier and I missed it, but I have a feeling it probably was not that. And it was probably more the other, where it was there were 2 versions, and then they went with one version and didn't realize they still had that segment from the other version, so whatever. Yeah. I do think that it was interesting that Cole had a reaction when she was talking about the woman potentially getting pushed overboard when they were up at the hot tub scene, and that he had a visceral enough reaction to like break a glass and cut up his hand and stuff. But that kind of reaction feels a lot like a red herring to me. Like, it's, let's throw some suspicion on Cole, because she doesn't know what to think of him either. And he could have other incriminating evidence on his camera that he thinks could have been seen from something else, and he could have purposely put his camera in for something like that instead. So there's all kinds of things that are going on there that I don't feel like that one is going to end up being the full culmination of things. I think it's going to be something else that was suspicious, that he's like, oops, I had to throw my camera away because I didn't want people to find out about this. But I don't know what that would be either, and why it would relate to what Lo was talking about. So there's all kinds of weird half things going on that are like, nothing is adding up yet. I'm so confused. I do appreciate that Bulmer was good to Lo. He didn't like outright say he believed her or anything, but he took it very seriously. And when she mentioned that Nielsen hadn't been taking it seriously and was trying to play it off like she was crazy because of her pills and things, that he was like, no, this is not how we treat these things. We'll make sure that it gets handled. We'll look into it further, all that kind of a thing. So I appreciate Bulmer's stance, even though he didn't really make a stance. So we'll see how that goes, I guess. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? I did like when she was getting ready to go to dinner in this part, that she specifically has the thought, no one can harm me in a room full of witnesses. I'm like, have you never heard of poisoning? I mean, it's unlikely at this point that they'd go the poisoning route, especially in front of a bunch of people, but there are definitely still ways to harm people, even within a room full of people. So, I mean, I can understand her feeling safer in numbers, because generally that's a good rule, but I was also like, there are definitely ways, if they wanted to take you out, that they could do it in a room full of people. So, I don't know that you should feel that safe. And then it was interesting, some of her conversation with, Carla, I think it was. Potentially Carla knew that someone was stowed away on the boat. That's intriguing. I can't wait for that to come out better and get more like investigated and stuff. I think that's a good lead, that the staff might know of someone who was purposefully stowing away on the ship for some reason. And it was interesting that she had a conversation, I've forgotten who, with maybe Cole? I don't know, but that someone else had been burgled before coming on the cruise too. The guy who was supposed to be in cabin 10 and didn't show, part of it was that he got burgled before he arrived. So that almost makes it seem like there is a connection to Lo getting burgled at the beginning, but at the same time I'm still confused because Lo hadn't been assigned it at that point, so I don't know who would have known and tried to burgle her to keep her from getting on the boat. So I'm curious to see how it ends up tying together. And then it was great that she'd gone, she was trying to relax, she'd taken her bath, and she comes back and someone's stolen her phone. Oh, she's just getting all the things stolen from her now. But it was also a great point on her end that she was like, oh, well, we're getting close to land now, and they'd been blocking my signal somehow, but if we get close to land and I get signal again, I could have called on things. So it makes sense that they would steal her phone. And I liked that she was able to reason all of that out about why they would have done it, and then eventually, too, how they had done it. And I felt like that was a really good tension-building scene, to be like, oh, this is how someone's been coming in and out of your room, and it totally explains the other things, like the shower door closing on her and stuff. It's like someone's totally been in your room, and that's totally how they could do it, like climbing around on the verandas and stuff. Ugh, I hate the idea of it personally because I don't do heights, and dangling myself out over the edge of a boat sounds awful, but kudos to that person for doing it. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was the forum thread that they put in, and I feel like it was just kind of a nonsense, pointless thing to add, because no matter how much this book is trying to push it, I do not believe for a second that the body is Lo's. It's going to be the girl from Cabin 10, so I don't know why it keeps pushing this agenda. It's really stupid and annoying, and I didn't like the conversation in the forums either. It felt like it was even more low grade than trying to have an intelligent discussion just between like friends on conspiracy theories and that type of thing. And I was just like, this is pointless. Why is this in here? I guess it's better than a newspaper clipping that gave away too much information. But yeah. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I don't understand why she has these outside of the ship things at the end of the parts. Like some of the texts and emails at the beginning kind of made sense and started building up some of the suspense. You're like, oh, is she just not having signal, or is she really going to disappear? But then as it's gotten into like newspaper clippings and forums and stuff, I'm like, this is pointless. I don't really care about this. Why is this here? So that's kind of my feelings on it, and I kind of wish she didn't have any of it at the end of parts because I don't really feel like it's adding to the story. But what can you do? Anyways, I think that's all I've got to say about this part. Let me know if you've still been reading along and if you've got any thoughts on this part and any of the suspense that's building up now and any theories on what's going to happen and what's going to be the end of the mystery. But that's all I've got for now. So this is the Umlaut Harper signing out.